Hi everyone, welcome. We're checking in today on my two newest worm bins, which are now 4 weeks of age. And they're where they belong, over there on the shelf where the newest of my stuff is. But when we last checked in on them 15 days ago, I completely lost track of the fact that we still had unfinished business. Because when I did the haul out of the worms from their old home to launch off those two new systems that we're going to be feeding, we took their old castings and we set up what we do sometimes, which is a bait box. And none of this was done on camera. So I did all this stuff 4 days after we did the haul out. I just came back in here with the consolidated castings from both systems, vermicompost plus straggler worms, and I deployed the bait box. But when I was back in here maybe less than a week ago, maybe last time I came in here to check on it 5 days ago, I went through that material underneath the bait box and there were no more worms left. So the only thing left to do is to reunite these little stragglers with the rest of the population that was hauled out 28 days ago to launch off the two new systems, and then I can actually consider that material as harvestable and complete. So I'm going to get a glove on, get some stuff up on the bench so we can get started with this, and let's regroup over there. Well, I definitely see flying insects, and I have run out of my pulverized mosquito dunks. I usually take one of these little donuts, grind it up in my little mini blender, and then I've got a powderized version of this stuff. And that's been the way I've been applying it for a while. Previously I would do it in a way that was closer to what a person would expect if they were just following the package instructions, which is to throw the stuff in water, and then that water is what the mosquitoes are unable to rear their next generation in. They could try, but those larvae will never make it to the adult stage. We had a lot of kind of, I don't know, heirloom, family heirlooms here, I guess. Stuff that came with the worms from their old home. And that stuff actually came into their old home late in the game, because these are the cardboard chunks that were used to segment the horizontal migration feeding zone, which was sort of the collection area for us to get the worms to come together to for the haul out and relocation. Look at this, we got something growing here. But I do believe that after 4 weeks of us just moving these bits of cardboard from here to there, it seems like a good next step for them to actually become part of the feeding this time. So speaking of the feeding, man, I wish I had some of my BTI to treat the system to try to ward off infestation. You know, I almost forgot that I prepared all this info to share, and man, there's a lot of info there, you know. It's almost self-explanatory. Instead of reading it off, if you want to check it out in detail, then you could pause for a moment. But I think the key information here was the fact that these systems, with the input of 5 viewers plus my input, those 6 estimates for how many worms occupy each of these systems were averaged. So the 6 guesstimates for how many worms live here, the 6 guesstimates for how many live here, were averaged to come up with 2 very, very close numbers, where it's thought that by only 7, it's thought that there's 2,630 worms living in bin number 1 and only 7 fewer worms living in bin number 2, 2623. So it's the system with fewer worms that we're going to be dropping the bait box contents into. And you know, let's not wait. Let's do it now. Because knowing silly me, I'm likely to forget. So we are going to be, you know, changing the population size for bin number 2 based on how many worms we believe we just managed to round up. And you know, as far as the box over there goes with the vermicompost in it, I can tell you for certain there's no worms left in that stuff, because even when I came in here 5 days ago to just check on it, I found maybe 2 worms right beneath the box in that fairly damp material underneath, pretty much halfway in, halfway out practically, for those couple that I did find, and pretty much none down in the rest of the material. So it'd be funny if we had only 7 worms being added right now, but I think we have a few more than that here. So I'm going to try to come up with an estimate for how many worms we're adding to the population size in bin number 2, and I'd love to hear your guesses too, so please leave a comment, let me know what you think. How many worms just got added? Whatever number you came up with, you can add 3, because I found 1 attached to the bait box and 2 on my glove. So I've already got a guesstimate how many more worms I think have been added here, and it's more than 7, so that's actually going to make bin number 2's population the greater one of the 2. And now I can proceed to harvesting the lovely vermicompost that these little guys created for us in their last homes. And well, after 28 days, I wouldn't expect a whole lot of vermicompost being developed here yet. It's a fairly short amount of time. But if there's any place to expect it, it would have to be down here in the feeding zones. So there was stuff added, potato peels, banana stem here, banana peels, a couple other things, and I think mango peels. But I think the highlight of that feeding, were these whole pears, which to me feel like they're quite intact still. At least the one in bin number 1 feels that way. And well, yep, same story here in bin number 2. Those pears are holding up pretty good. But perhaps what's distracting the worms from actually moving in on the lovely fruit is the worm party developing to enjoy the juices coming out of the fruit. Oh boy, look at all those worms. You know, I bet you we got the same worm party occurring in bin number 1. Alright, I feel bad disturbing them. They're so peaceful down there, slurping up the pear juice. And well, guess what? There's plenty where that came from. Don't stop now. So I'm questioning whether what we've done here is space enough as is to put today's feeding in, because it's pretty good size. Because I had this funny brainstorm as I went through my collection of stuff in the freezer, and my idea was to do away with look at this mango seed. All right, do away with a variety of corn that I had sitting around. And how do you like that? That's quite a bit. And hopefully these systems being pretty young is going to provide ample time for the corn cobs to get broken down, and I should make some sort of a pledge, but I know I won't keep to it if I do, which is to try to help these corn cobs to the finish line, because I do have this tendency to kind of steer clear of corn cobs. So I think the corn cobs are going to be kind of the highlight, but we've seen that and done that. What I have here is something that's a little different, so we'll try to spice up the variety aspect by putting some coconut in here that I brought home from my mom's the other day. Kind of a novelty item to let all her grand kids try something they might not have tried before or might not have had much access to. So I brought home some of the leftovers, since I'm the one who went to the trouble of picking all the yummy fruit out of the shell. So I was awarded with the leftovers, of which there was pretty much probably at least almost half the coconut remained, and it ended up getting forgotten about in that Ziploc bag in the back of the refrigerator, and it's regrettable how much stuff ends up falling into that category. So this here, there's a clue right there. What kind of leaves are these? They're radish leaves, and these radish leaves, I tell you, they're pretty much halfway broken down when you bring them home already, or at least that's the way it seems to me occasionally, because these leaves on the radish, and perhaps other plants too, but radish somehow sticks out in my head as being the one that always seems to start breaking down very quickly. Now I would imagine getting frozen first and now thrown into the worm bins is going to kick into high gear from a breakdown perspective. And this leaves us with the corn. So my other brainstorm here was, well, why don't we treat it as a comparison? So these are just some corn cobs that I set aside and almost forgot about. Stuff that were meant to be human food a couple months ago was sort of semi-abandoned in my garage. Out of sight, out of mind is a problem. So I figured put the ones that are this season's corn cobs that were never ever frozen and still have corn kernels on them into bin number 1, and bin number 2 is going to get something I'm finally getting rid of, which is a collection of basically 4 corn cobs broken in half, resulting in 8 segments of corn cob, off of which the kernels have already been eaten. And these corn cobs go back to the summer of 2 years ago. So I put these in water. I soaked them in water. I froze them. They've been in the freezer ever since 2 years ago, and you know, I'm kind of over corn cobs. I got to do away with corn cob stuff around here, so it seemed to me like a couple of fairly young systems is the place to go to try to tackle that situation. And since I had a little bit of corn cob this, corn cob that, we could sort of compare how the frozen ones compare to the ones that never got frozen. And before we cover up the feeding zone, let's not forget we can give grit. But I guess the main thing that stopped me was me reminding myself that I'd like to add even more bedding. Besides that nice seasoned bedding we laid down as a foundation for the feeding, we're going to sprinkle in some of my prepared bedding here to cover up the feeding. And you know, I've already got at least one piece of homework for myself in these systems, which is to come back off camera, because there's no need to record it, but I will be back to sprinkle in some mosquito dunks once I've replenished my supply. And I think that pretty much brings us to the end of the check-in. Let's just go out to the edges to see how things there look. I mean, since these systems got launched 4 weeks ago, we've only had the one opportunity 15 days ago when the systems were still at the tender young age of 13 still. We came in to see how things look. And you know, the top level's a little bit dry. I guess the bubble wrap plastic we've been covering up with here isn't doing quite a good job as it could, but you know, I'm not going to sweat it. I am now blending in some of this dry stuff that sat out here on the surface with the fairly comfortable stuff that's below it. It did seem like when I unearthed material from the very bottom on the opposite edge, I was bringing up worms. And here too I can see a few, except the stuff very furthest away at the very edge didn't seem to have many worms in it. So I'm starting to wonder if perhaps another nice parting gift I can give these little guys to try to help make their environment a little bit more cozy would be perhaps a splash of water, and maybe not even in both systems, you know, because here, so far, yeah, I'm feeling a little bit of dry stuff that, you know, managed to kick off its moisture content by being out on the surface. But not as much as I felt, I think, in bin number 1. Well, here's a pretty good amount of it. So I was just trying to decide if perhaps one system could use moisture and perhaps the other doesn't, but you know what? Why be stingy, right? The worms love it, and you know what? It also offers me the opportunity to leave some of this stuff adhering to my glove in the bins where it belongs. And how do you like that? I think we've been pretty generous here with the moisture, and it's not unusual for systems this age, pretty young still, to have trouble hanging on to their moisture content, mainly because the stuff that they're made up of still is almost all bedding, huge pockets of air in between stuff that might already have the capability to hang on to its moisture, stuff that's down deeper where it's protected from drying. But that'll all change in time. So I think we're okay as far as protection, as far as top coverings go. And when I watched the video from last time and I saw how we covered up with paper sheets, that seemed nice, but it seemed like even nicer would be leaves. So I figured let's top off today's feeding with a nice portion of leaves which when we come back next time will probably be in prime condition to get blended in and make the entire bed even that much more lovely. Alright, that's it for our check-in now. With our now reunited population, gives me some homework. I gotta harvest those castings, make that bin available for other uses, get some BTI, also known as mosquito dunks, in here once I've processed some more, and naturally all the other stuff that goes with the routine here, cleaning up, putting away. But I'm not going to keep you around for that. That's boring. Before I go really quick, let me just say thank you. Thank you so much for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. If you did, as always, please don't forget to leave me a quick thumbs up before you go. It's always really appreciated. And if you haven't done so already, please also consider subscribing to the channel. That's very much appreciated as well. All right, everyone. Thanks for watching. Have a great day. Bye now.